There are stories that change lives in an instant. Stories born when you least expect them, in the most unexpected places of a city like Los Angeles. This is the story of how a millionaire businessman from Beverly Hills discovered that his heart could break and mend itself on the same day. Everything began with a past due rent in a dilapidated apartment building in South Central. David Miller was 35 years old, a self-made millionaire, and firmly believed that feelings had no place in business. He handled his luxury SUV on streets that smelled of freshly made tacos and broken dreams, never imagining that behind a door marked 4B, a 7-year-old girl was about to teach him that there's something more powerful than money. Sofa didn't know that Tuesday would change her destiny forever. With fingers bleeding from sewing and an empty stomach for 3 days, she was waiting for a miracle that arrived dressed in an expensive suit and Italian tie. But miracles sometimes come disguised as problems, and this would be no exception. Because when a heart hardened by years meets unwavering innocence, when the power of money collides with the force of true love, things happen that no one can predict. And on the streets of LA, where every corner holds a story of struggle and hope, one of the most extraordinary stories ever told was about to be written. This is the story of David and Sofa, a story of losses that turn into encounters, of betrayals that reveal truths, and of how a girl who sewed to survive ended up saving the soul of a man who thought he had everything. Get ready to witness the transformative power of unconditional love in a story that will make you believe in everyday miracles again. David Miller got out of his BMW, slamming the door shut. The October heat in Los Angeles clung to his Italian suit like a second skin, but that wasn't what bothered him. 3 months without collecting rent from apartment 4B was unacceptable. He walked down the hallway of the apartment building, dodging buckets of soapy water and the pungent smell of refried beans. His Italian leather shoes echoed against the cracked cement floor. Reaching the door, he took a deep breath and knocked. Silence. He knocked again, this time louder. He heard small steps approaching slowly. The door opened just a few inches, and what he saw froze him. A skinny girl, about 7 years old, looked up at him with huge, tired eyes. Her black hair was messy and her hands were stained with dried blood. "You also came to take something?" she asked weakly. "We have nothing left." David frowned. "Where's your mum?" The girl looked down. "In heaven. I mean, at the general hospital. But she's almost going to heaven. Are you alone here?" "I'm not alone. I have Cinnamon." She pointed to a corner where an orange cat slept on a cardboard box. David gently pushed the door open and entered. The apartment was dimly lit, smelling of medicine and burnt tacos. On the table, an old sewing machine and piles of colorful fabric. The girl's fingers had multiple needle pricks. "You're sewing all of this?" "Mrs. Hope from 3B taught me. She pays me $5 for each cover I finish." Her little eyes filled with tears. "But I couldn't finish any today. My tummy hurts a lot." "When was the last time you ate?" The girl counted on her fingers. "Sunday. I shared some tacos with Cinnamon." David's world tilted. It was Wednesday. "What's your name?" "Sofa." At that moment, the little girl's legs gave way and she collapsed like a rag doll. David caught her before she hit the cement floor. Her tiny body weighed less than her portfolio. Without a second thought, he scooped her into his arms and raced to his SUV. While speeding toward the general hospital, he didn't know that Sofa had just lied to him about something that would change everything he thought he knew about his own life. The general hospital smelled of disinfectant and despair. David handled Sofa through the crowded hallways, dodging gurneys and families sleeping on the floor. After the doctors stabilized the girl with IV fluids and glucose, a nurse gave him the information he needed. "Carol Hernandez, room 23, oncology, 3rd floor." David took the stairs 2 at a time. The oncology floor was a labyrinth of silent suffering. He found Carol in a narrow bed, hooked up to clear tubes. Her skin was yellowish, and her hair was very short, almost shaved. You are Carol? The woman opened her eyes slowly. She had the same deep gaze as Sofa, but laden with a mortal weariness. Who's asking? David Miller. I'm the landlord of the apartment where you live. I found your daughter malnourished and passed out. Carol squeezed her eyes shut. Is she all right? She is now, but she hadn't eaten for 3 days. David pulled up a chair. Why didn't you ask for help? Carol looked at him with a mixture of wounded pride and desperation. Who? The government that took away my job when I got sick? The family that abandoned me when I adopted Sofa? Adopted? She's not my biological daughter, but she's everything I have in this world. Carol tried to sit up. I thought that if I died, it would be better if she wasn't so attached to me. David felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. That's why you left her alone. I thought Mrs. Hope would take better care of her than I could from this bed. Tears rolled down Carol's sunken cheeks. But Sofa is stubborn like her adoptive mother. She didn't want to leave home. Don't you have anyone else? Carol hesitated for a few seconds, as if debating internally. I have a sister. Rich, successful, important. I asked her for help a year ago. And what happened? She offered me money to put Sofa in an orphanage. She said a cancer patient couldn't raise a child. Carol's voice turned bitter. I told her I'd rather die than be separated from my daughter. David fell silent, processing the information. A rich sister in the Beverly Hills business world. The circle was smaller than he thought. What's your sister's name? Alex. Alex Hernandez. Carol closed her eyes. She works in real estate, handles big companies, says money can solve everything. The name resonated in David's mind like a fire alarm, but he couldn't quite place it. Meanwhile, 3 floors below, someone else had arrived at the hospital and was watching every move from the shadows. David returned to the apartment that night with 2 bags from the nearest 7-Eleven, tacos, canned beans, milk, sweet bread, and some cans of tuna. Nothing extravagant, but enough to keep Sofa from going hungry while he sorted out Carol's situation. He went up to the 4th floor quietly and left the bags in front of door 4B. He knocked twice and ran down the stairs like a teenager playing a prank. The next day, he returned with more groceries, but this time Sofa was waiting for him, sitting on the stairs. You left the bags yesterday, right? She said bluntly. Your perfume is on the bread. David stopped short. How? Rich men smell different, like offices and new cars. Sofa stood up and looked him straight in the eye. Why are you helping us? David sat down on the step next to her. Because nobody helped me when I was like you. Were you poor too? Poorer than you. I grew up in Nezahualcóyotl, eating tacos with salt and sleeping on the floor. David looked toward the courtyard of the apartment building. My mom got sick too when I was your age, David said. And she died? Yeah, and I was left alone. David's voice cracked slightly. I promised that if I ever had money, I'd help other kids like me. Sophia ran to the apartment and came back with a crumpled piece of paper. It was a drawing done with cheap crayons. David carrying her on their first day, but with huge angel wings drawn on his back. I made it yesterday, she said shyly. David carefully took the drawing. Turning it over, he read a phrase written in childish letters. I hope you don't go away like everyone else. Who went away, Sophia? My real dad, my grandma. The social worker who promised to help us, the doctor who said he was going to cure my mom. Sophia shrugged. Everyone says they're going to stay, but then they leave. David folded the drawing and put it in his jacket pocket. I'm not going anywhere. You promise? I promise you. While returning to his office in Beverly Hills, David didn't know that Alex Johnson, his trusted administrator, had noticed his absences and had already started investigating. He also didn't know that she had access to his schedule, his bank statements, and an ambition that surpassed any personal loyalty. Alex Johnson was waiting for David in her private office on the 35th floor. She was 32, had an MBA from Harvard, and a smile that hid intentions colder than the corporate air conditioning. You're late again, she said, without looking up from her tablet. This is the 5th time in 2 weeks. David hung his jacket on the rack. I had personal matters. A poor little girl, seriously. Alex finally looked at him. Are you having a midlife crisis or what? David froze. How do you know about that? I'm your administrator, David. It's my job to know everything you do. Alex got up and walked to the window overlooking Park. Transfers to pharmacies, hospital payments, deposits to third-party accounts. Everything without board authorization. It's my personal funds that you're mixing with the company's. Alex turned to him. You're going to ruin your career over a stranger. She's not a stranger. She's a fighter. She's a burden. Alex returned to her desk. My sister died years ago of cancer. She also had an adopted daughter. Believe me, I know the story. Pure tears and drama until they die and leave you with the expenses. Something in Alex's tone made David look at her more closely, but she had already changed the subject. I need you to sign these documents for the property restructuring. She put a folder in front of him. Legal routine, nothing complicated. David quickly flipped through the papers. There were many, and the legal text was small. His mind was on Carol, on the treatment she needed, on Sophia's eyes waiting for him. What do we do with the building in the doctor's neighborhood? Alex casually asked. We maintain the status quo. Perfect, Alex smiled. So sign here. David signed without reading completely. In his head, he was calculating how much money he would need for Carol's experimental treatment. Ready, he said, closing the folder. Excellent. Alex put the documents in her personal safe. Well, you're going to fight me, David, and I don't lose. David looked at her confused. What are you talking about? But Alex had already left the office, taking with her a document that would change everything. The eviction authorization for apartment 4B, signed by David himself, without knowing it. David arrived at the building in the doctor's neighborhood with a smile on his lips. He had secured an appointment with the best private oncologist in city for Carol, and he had good news for Sophia. But as he rounded the corner towards the building, he saw something that chilled him to the bone. Sophia was sitting on the curb, hugging a faded backpack. Silence filled the air as two men in overalls carried old furniture out of the building. Sophia! David rushed to her. The girl looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. Seeing him, she jumped up and hugged him fiercely, desperately. They said you authorized them to take our things. She sobbed into his chest. Is it true? What? David gently pulled her back to look into her eyes. I would never sign anything like that. Sophia pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her backpack. Then why is your name here? David took the document with trembling hands. It was an eviction notice issued that very morning, with his signature at the bottom. But he remembered signing routine papers in his office. Someone forged my signature, like when my teacher forges the principal's. Sophia wiped her nose with her sleeve. Is it that bad? Worse, much worse. David clenched his fists. Where are they taking your things? They're not taking anything. The men said that everything that didn't fit in my backpack was going to the trash. Sophia pointed to a dumpster overflowing with destroyed memories. They already threw away my sewing machine. David felt a rage he hadn't experienced in years. Who told you about the eviction? Alex Hernandez. Sophia reached into her backpack and pulled out another, smaller piece of paper. She gave me this. It was a handwritten note. Rich people always get bored of playing at being good. David's tired of you guys. David's world tilted. Alex hadn't just forged his signature. She had manipulated a 7-year-old girl into believing he had betrayed her. Sophia, look at me. David crouched down to her level. I would never abandon you. Someone very bad is hurting both of us. But where are we going to live? Where will my mommy go when she gets out of the general hospital? David shouldered Sophia's backpack and took her hand. With me. You're going to live with me. The house in West Hollywood was unlike anything Sophia had ever known. It had 2 stories, a small but well-kept garden, and large windows that let in plenty of light. Lucy, the nurse David had hired, greeted her with a motherly hug and a cup of hot chocolate. But after dinner, Sophia locked herself in the upstairs bathroom. David could hear her sobs through the door. Sophia, are you okay? He knocked gently. "Don't leave," she whimpered from inside. "Please don't leave like my biological dad." David sat on the floor, his back against the door. "I'm not going to leave. I promised you. But what if you get bored of me? What if I'm too much trouble? Tell me about your biological dad." There was a long silence. Then he heard the sound of the latch opening. Sophia came out, eyes swollen, clutching a towel. "My mom, Carol Hernandez, says he left when he found out I wasn't really his." "Not his?" Sophia sat next to him in the hallway. "My real mom left me at a clinic when I was a baby. Carol arrived looking for work and saw me. She said she picked me up and couldn't put me down. And your dad didn't want you. At first he did. But when he found out I didn't have his blood, he said why should he support another man's child?" Sophia hugged her knees. "He said Carol could choose, him or me." David felt his heart break. "Well, he was a fool, because you're worth more than gold." "Really? Really?" David hugged her. "Besides, I have something to tell you. I discovered you've been selling embroidery." Sophia tensed. "How did you know?" "Lucy found the messages in your backpack." David smiled. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I don't want to be a burden to anyone else." Sophia hung her head. "I've already saved $2,800 for my mum's treatment." $2,800. I sell bracelets with names, phone cases, embroidered towels. Sophia looked at him with pride. "A lady from Satellite bought 10 pieces. She sent the money through 7-Eleven, David said, still reeling from what he'd just heard. A 7-year-old girl, secretly working to save her adoptive mother. "Sofa, tomorrow we're going to use your money for something very special." "What for?" "So you can pay for your mum's treatment yourself." 2 weeks later, while Sofa was doing her homework at the dining room table, the doorbell rang. Lucy answered and returned with a worried look. "It's a lady who says her name is Alex. She wants to talk to Sofa." David came out of the kitchen, drying his hands. "Alex is here?" Sofa looked up from her books. Hearing the name, her eyes widened with alarm. "She's the bad lady who took our house." Alex appeared in the dining room doorway. She wasn't wearing her executive suit. She was in jeans and a simple blouse, her face looking tired, haggard. "Hi, Sofa." Her voice sounded different, softer. "I'm your aunt." "Carol is my sister." "My aunt?" Sofa dropped her pencil. "The bad sister my mum talks about?" "Yes, that's me." Alex approached slowly. "Didn't she tell you she hated me?" David stepped between them. "What do you want, Alex?" "To talk to my niece." Alex pulled an old photo from her purse. "Look, Sofa, this is me with your mum when we were kids." Sofa took the photo curiously. 2 little girls hugging, smiling in front of a humble house. "Carol rejected me when I offered her money for you," Alex continued. "Money for me? To give you a better life. Nice houses, expensive schools, new clothes." Alex sat down in front of Sofa. "But she preferred misery." Sofa looked at the photo for a moment, then handed it back. "Because love can't be bought, ma'am." "What?" "My mom says there are things you can't buy. Like hugs when you have nightmares, or someone making you soup when you're sick, or singing to you while you sew." Sofa crossed her arms. "You have money, but you're alone, right?" Alex was silent. "And you're sick, too." Sofa tilted her head. "Is that why you're so angry with life?" Alex's eyes filled with tears. "How?" "You look the same as my mum when she started getting sick. Skinny, with dark circles under her eyes, and always sad." Sofa moved closer to her. "Is it cancer too?" Alex nodded slowly. "Terminal. I have a few months left." David felt the floor move beneath his feet. "That's why I did all this," Alex whispered. "I wanted to make sure someone would take care of Sofa when Carol and I were gone." The corporate boardroom was thick with unspoken tension. David had called an emergency meeting to present the evidence against Alex, but he found a surprise waiting. Alex was already there, standing before everyone, a folder in her hands. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice clear, "before David presents his accusations, I want to make a confession." David paused at the entrance. "Alex, I set up an operation to test if David Miller is the man we thought he was. Alex opened the folder. I falsified documents, executed an illegal eviction, and manipulated financial information. The partners murmured among themselves, confused. What's going on here? The chairman asked. The truth. Alex looked directly at David. My sister taught me that love is worth more than money. Your sister, Carol Hernandez, the woman David is saving, is my sister. Alex projected a photo onto the screen, her and Carol as children. When I learned that David was helping a sick mother with cancer, it seemed impossible. Businessmen like us don't do that. David approached slowly. Everything was a test. I wanted to see if you truly loved Sofa or were just playing games. Alex smiled, tears in her eyes. Seeing you risk your career, your company, your reputation for a girl who isn't even your blood, I understood that my sister had found the right man. But the eviction, it was real. I wanted Sophia to experience the loss, to see if you'd comfort her or abandon her. Alex addressed the partners. David Miller not only kept that girl by his side, but he promised her a family. The chairman of the board stood up. Are you saying that everything was orchestrated by a woman who's dying of cancer and wanted to secure her niece's future? Alex put her hands on the table. I withdraw all accusations against David. In fact, I propose that he be granted complete autonomy in his humanitarian decisions. David was speechless. Why? Because my sister asked me to take care of Sophia when she died. And there's no better caregiver than someone who risks everything for love. Alex closed the folder. Vote in favor of David Miller. He's the best man you can have running this company. The vote was unanimous. The experimental treatment worked better than expected. Carol survived the 6-hour surgery, but her body was extremely weak. The doctors gave her a few weeks, maybe months if she was lucky. David asked for permission to take her home. He wanted her last days to be surrounded by love, not machines and unfamiliar nurses. They settled her in the master bedroom of the house in West Hollywood. Carol could walk a little, but she was conscious and alert. Sophia wouldn't leave her side, reading her stories and showing her her schoolwork. One afternoon, while Sophia played in the garden with Lucy, Carol called David. I want to ask you something before I go, she said in a hoarse voice. David sat by the bed. Don't talk like that. You're going to get better. Don't lie. We both know I'm leaving. Carol took his hand with effort. Legally adopt Sophia. Carol, promise me that she'll be your daughter, not your charity. David felt a lump in his throat. I promise you. There's something else. Carol smiled weakly. I pretended to be sicker than I was at first. What? I wanted you to fall in love with Sophia before I died. I was afraid you'd only help her out of pity. Carol closed her eyes. But when I saw you carrying her that first day, I knew you were special. Why? Because you carried her like she was yours, not like she was a burden. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm going to tell you a secret, David. Tell me. I knew your name beforehand. Years ago, you helped a young woman with cancer pay for her treatment. It was my sister, Alex, but she never told you my name. David's eyes widened in surprise. Alex was the sister you helped when you were starting your business. She always talked about a kind businessman who didn't want to be paid. Carol squeezed his hand. When I saw your name on the lease documents, I knew God had sent me an angel. Carol. Take care of my girl. Love her like she came from you. That night, Carol died in her sleep. She simply stopped breathing, with a smile on her lips and Sophia's hand in hers. A year later, Sophia was 8 years old and had grown several inches. She officially lived with David as his adoptive daughter, attended a private school in South Central, and had friends who invited her to birthday parties. But she never forgot Carol. Every Sunday they visited her grave in the cemetery garden, bringing her cempasúchil flowers and telling her the week's news. One afternoon, while cleaning Carol's closet, which David had kept intact, Sophia found a shoebox hidden behind the clothes. Inside were old photos, medicine receipts, and a sealed envelope with her name written in Carol's handwriting. "What does it say?" David asked, sitting next to her on the bed. Sophia carefully opened the envelope. It was a long letter written on notebook paper. "It says you were her gift to me." "Her gift?" "That she prayed hard for someone to love me when she wasn't around." Sophia continued reading. "That she knew from day one you were going to adopt me." "How could she know that?" Sophia smiled through her tears. "Because it says that when you held me that first day, you had the same face she had when she adopted me at the clinic." David hugged Sophia while she finished reading. "It also says that you and her Aunt Alex are better people than you think, that you're healing each other's hearts." "Does it mention anything else?" "Yes. It says that when I grow up, she wants me to study to help other kids like us." Sophia carefully folded the letter. "Can I do that, Dad?" It was the first time Sophia called him Dad without him asking. "You can do whatever you want, my love." "Then I want to be a doctor. To cure cancer, and so no girl has to be without a mum." David hugged her tighter. "And prayers do come true, right, Dad?" "Yes, my sweet pea. Prayers always come true."